Greetings, and welcome to the Modern Alchemist channel. I'm Aubrey Forrest, the Modern Alchemist, and this is Essentials of Practical Alchemy 2018, The Science of Magic. In our last class, we talked about the directions up, down, in, and out, and what they describe in terms of the universe and the esoteric. In this episode, we're going to continue our discussion of up, down, in, and out, and talk about what it's all about. So stay with me for the next few minutes as we break down some more essentials of practical alchemy here on the Modern Alchemist channel. Let's begin.
Shall we begin? Let's begin now. Let's begin now.
Okay, I'm sure some of you guys out there are like, why did he put the pirate symbol of the notorious Kabai Sang, of the Sang Brotherhood from the movie The Phantom with Billy Zane, which is absolutely amazing, at the very front of his review session? Well, the reason for it's obvious. It's for those of you who came in late, and because the symbol of the Sang Brotherhood, which is a spider web, is actually pertinent to our discussion. Because it is emblematic, two-dimensionally, of the universe itself taken in fractal form. And we're going to talk about that right now. So last week what we did was we broke down the universe into 4 directions that could be taken, assuming that somewhere in the universe there's a center, just as there's a center in everything else, and that somewhere else there's an exterior. And just with the knowledge of a center and exterior, one can navigate using up, down, in, and out. And what we did was we discovered that we could use these 2 esoteric representations, which are actually depictions of the same thing, but whose descriptions are mutually exclusive. The idea being here that that which is in the center of the sphere is of the highest energy, the highest nobility, right? The center of the group, the center of the ring, all of our constructions, all of our ideas of that being at the very eye of the storm, the very pivotal, the very center, the fulcrum, if you will, is of the highest nobility, the greatest dignity, the most importance. And of the same caliber token, we believe and understand, and by experience have seen, that that which is at the highest point of the pyramid is clearly of the greatest nobility, the greatest dignity, the greatest supremacy. And so by using the tetragrammaton, which we draw from this, and then can also apply here, we can create for ourselves a 3-dimensional depiction of the universe and actually understand its stages, its flows, and understand also why the direction throughout all of history has been to seek peace from within, to go inward, to focus inward, to correct that which is outward. We're going to actually see the scientific mechanic of that and recognize that this mechanic is an actual description of reality. The reality that you and I share and live in every moment of every day. So are you excited yet? I'm excited. Alright, so what we then did was understanding that, for instance, the yod, which represents fire, okay, the yod-he, which represents water, the yod-he vav, which represents air, and the yod-he vav-he, which there's a dual interpretation here. Now, what is clearly accepted and understood is that this is a barrier of earth, right? This is the lowest, slowest form of whatever. But there's a secondary way of looking at this. The approach is the last person to enter the room in the Middle East This is an actual thing. The last person who entered the room is the person with the greatest power, because they nuance everything else that happens. And this is also, for instance, in Japanese business meetings. It's amazing how they do this. They have all the junior members speak first, and then the senior members get to say something, and that way the junior guys don't counteract what the senior guys say. It's brilliant, really, because then you can get some great ideas without causing people to be embarrassed. Well, in the same context, then, the last character within a sequence would nuance or create a second idea. And for me, the idea then would be another barrier of water. So we have fire, then water, then air, and then water. And that reminds me of what is described within Genesis, where there is a vault of air that takes place between the waters, and this creates everything else. And I actually cover this idea in an earlier episode of Essentials of Practical Alchemy 2018, where I talk about Adam's helpmeet, and we discuss that dynamic. Well, now we're going to get to see that dynamic and stage it out into esoteric terms, so that we have a greater understanding of what's taking place inside ourselves, within our bodies, within the environment around, within the universe, and be able to come into sequence with that, to syncopation, harmony, to get the rhythm and the beat of the universe and beat with it instead of against that harmony. So over here then, what we did was we took the same idea, so that the yod is at the highest degree and that the center and the top are co-equivalent, and then staged that down into rings. So in this context then, each ring moving outward gives us a different idea of the state or energy of that ring. And remember that in the electric universe, everything is set up in double layers. I think that's the other reason why I was heading toward the water thing over here, because the idea of water and water with a zone of air between it, right, a vault, gives you the presentation of a double layer. Hey guys, I wanted to break in on myself and just introduce another idea. This whole thing with the last guy entering the room, it's just stuck with me, especially when I was in an edit, and I was looking at myself pointing at this triangle and realizing that I actually had established it from a given perspective, this last man entering the room, and the idea that the final bottom here should be interpreted as another barrier of water. Now here's how this works. The circle and the rings that I had set up before, I modified slightly so that the rings themselves represent the thing. I had before just had a center with yod, but remember that we're looking at two cones coming together, and in truth, if we look at the spider web and that symbol from Kabai Sang, you'll see that it again is these triangles all linked together around a single thing, and all I'd have to do is just put a series of lines through each of these, and guess what? Now I have my spider web going in there, see? Well, the idea then is this triangle represents a wedge cut, but in an unconventional way. You'd expect the wedge to be like a pie wedge, but instead what you have is this curve right here is just a cut from the interior here. So this would be the yod ring, this would be the he ring, which is here, this would be the vav ring coming in like this, vav, air, and then the last ring would be he again, which would be water. And so what we have is a double layered effect, commencing with the ether in the very center, the void, and then a ring of fire, positive, projective, masculine, attractive energy in that ring. Then around that is another ring of feminine, resistive, negative, receptive energy, and then another positive, projective point with another negative receptive, double layer and coaxial flow going up and down at the same time. The animation I'm going to show you in this video, it just has a unilinear, a monolinear flow going just in one way. And the truth is it's going both ways, like this, wrapping around each other. in this beautiful coaxial pinch, which then pulls down into the center. And this then could be seen as the inner ring of that center going around the void. Anyway, I wanted to just take a moment, bring that idea into further clarity because it just hit me like a lightning bolt. I was like, wow, I have to share this with you guys, and I have to do it before I finish. So here you go. All right, Aubrey, take over. And seeing that present outward in such a way so that it becomes three-dimensional once we move this, because what we're doing is we're looking at this right here, this cone, this becomes a cone, right? We're looking at this from the top down right here. So this is top down. So we're seeing the cone spread out in front of us from the top down. I have an animation, by the way, that I edited that will be useful in understanding these ideas. So in this context then, what we have, this is this cone, which is this cone here, they're now laid on their side and they're facing each other, right, with the highest point in the center. Because it's agreed that the lowest point of energy is on the outside. So it's both down and out. And that's descriptive of the lowest point of energy, the lowest vibratory state. It's interesting that when you're in that state, you can be both resistant to help, but also receptive to help, because you're in that negative receptive state where your vibration is so low that the input of almost anything else can shake things up for you. But anyway, when you're on that down and out, you're down and out over here, and when you're up and in, you're at the center. Manly P. Hall would appreciate this, as would Madame Blavatsky, because your body is the key to understanding this vortices that takes place. And it's easy to do. Basically what you're having, your right arm can create a vortex. This is straight up like Daniel-san stuff, okay? So get ready for it. So it's wax on, right, with the right hand, and wax off with the left hand. And if you go palm to palm and maintain that energy like this, now what you're seeing are the two, that always, you guys will have to talk to me in the comments section below, but I have often found that the palms of my hands will heat up dramatically when I'm doing this. So it's a little bit distracting. Anyway. So the idea then is these two vortices are working simultaneously, and at the center there's a coaxial exchange where they simply passed right by each other in a double layer, so that the one moves the one way and the other moves the other. What is amazing about this is the structure of the human eye depends on this function. Because right here, this, let's say, is the front of the eye, and at this point, let's say you got a person and he's looking at a dude over here, right? So the person is looking at this guy here. But we know that by the time it gets to this point over here, there's a center point within the eye where this exchanges, this flips. And this guy over here now is upside down over here. He flips, and then it goes through the basal ganglia all the way to the visual cortex in the back of your brain, right here. And then you imagine what this person looks like. Because you're editing out stuff all the time. We're constantly forgetting what people look like. It's been established in hundreds of eyewitness studies where we're absolutely useless when it comes to looking at a crime scene and trying to evaluate it when it's happening like that. So we're editing stuff out, and part of it is because this is happening to us, that we're looking at something that we believe is right side up, and it's actually in our head. It flips, and then it does a secondary flip back here. But this idea then tells you that it demonstrates this flow, because they look like they're opposite to each other. But then they come to the middle and they clap hands, and then they go out the other way like this. Really, your body is the #1 key to sorting this stuff out. Like if you just want to figure out the function of something on an esoteric level, meditate on how your body's working. Just the basic mechanics, like just playing with your hands and seeing what happens as you move that energy outward. It's really quite remarkable as in terms of meditation. What do we do with this information? What can be gained by understanding the idea of the up and down and the in and out? For me, this is really useful in understanding how this plays out in my emotional self. Especially at this time of year when the light cycles down. This is a great way of managing your thought processes by understanding the direction your thoughts are taking. In other words, that if you are thinking about things and you are constantly contemplating things which are drawing you into a negative direction, if you take just that instance, literally, there are only a few instances that just pop up when depression is setting upon you, and you begin to lose rational insights. Because all you're doing is feeling, and then pretty soon you're feeling miserable about feeling miserable. And once that's in, then you're doing the whole universal spiral thing, and you're going down and out. Well, the idea is if you're just lucid enough to catch that and go, aha, wait a second, this thinking is pulling me in that, and not getting caught up and going, oh, and I'm so terrible for thinking that way. But just stopping, hitting the brakes, and using that as a stepping stone, you can work yourself back up. You can start to utilize the techniques that I've talked about in other classes. Techniques like just getting up and moving. The fact that the universe cries out for motion because it is ever in motion, and that it speaks to vibratory states. So that if you're sedentary, you're eliciting a vibratory state which is going to take you to the bottom of this cone, to the very exterior, to the outside. On the other hand, if you're focusing and surrounding yourself with vibratory states and environs and people, animals, plants, whatever it is that would stimulate you into that up place, then you will be able to maintain your center. And that's the ultimate key. That's why everyone is always talking meditation-wise about you have to find your center. And for me, I for years contemplated, well, what do you mean find my center? Where's my center? And I discovered this idea, this method, that by understanding direction applies also to emotional states. That an emotional state can be contained within this torus. So that as you step yourself toward the center, you actually find yourself at a vibratory state which does that amazing transition where it looks like you're shake, 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 and then suddenly, boom, you appear as stationary as you would have been had there been no vibration at all, right? It's the literal opposite end of it. So that the vibratory state out here, which is absolute static petrification, at the very center and core winds up being a vibratory state that is also absolutely static. But the stasis is the result of an extraordinary level of vibratory energy and power. This is how you become the center of your own storm in like a business setting that becomes extraordinarily frustrating. By being able to stop for a minute and go, okay, wait, where is the direction of this conversation leading? Is it leading us inward towards a solution or away from the solution? Remember, everything universal has an objective center and an exterior, including the line of thinking that we employ, because our thinking is a material component of the mental universe. So it literally is the building blocks upon which everything else is built. So now we can see the value of this information. There's the scientific value, of course, is self-evident because it becomes descriptive of how everything else in the universe operates. That at some point within everything, the universe is manifesting simultaneously. It is kind of amazing. That is the beauty that I draw from the esoteric. That all of this can be connected and applied to everything else, and that it can be used to understand how things work and your relationship to those operations. I'm Aubrey Forrest, the Modern Alchemist, and this has been Essentials of Practical Alchemy 2018, The Science of Magic, where we've wrapped up our discussion on up, down, in and out, and what that is all about. I'll be talking to you later.